Welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive.
Always.
This time, we're looking at how it works.
Oh, interesting.
It's a chapter from a 12-step program.
Ah, okay. I know those steps are usually for addiction.
Right, but they offer some really great insight into personal growth, too.
Yeah, I can see that.
So the first step is admitting powerlessness. Doesn't that sound a little bit like giving up, though?
Not at all, no. Think about it. Have you ever tried to force something and it just backfires?
Oh, yeah.
Like the harder you push, the worse it gets.
For sure.
This step is all about recognizing that sometimes, our willpower just isn't enough.
Right.
The chapter even compares it to a self-willed actor.
What do you mean?
It's like imagine an actor trying to control everyone else on stage.
Oh, wow.
It just creates chaos.
That makes sense. Okay, so step 2 is finding a higher power.
Right.
I feel like that can be a really hard concept for some people.
Yeah, definitely. And, it doesn't have to be religious.
Okay, that's good to know.
Just think about, what gives you a sense of hope? Or even just the belief that things can get better.
Okay.
It could be nature, a community, art,
Right.
anything that inspires you.
So it's about finding that thing that helps you see beyond your own limits.
Exactly. And that leads us right into step 3.
Okay.
Surrendering to that higher power.
Oh, this one's tough.
It can be. It's not easy to just let go of control.
Yeah.
What if instead of trying to force everything to go your way, you allowed yourself to trust a bigger plan? Have you ever had an experience where, letting go actually led to a better outcome?
I think we all have, yeah. It's just hard to remember those times when things are stressful.
Right.
Okay, so we've admitted we need help, we've found something to believe in, and we're trying to surrender control.
Right.
So what comes next?
Now comes the part where things get really insightful.
Okay.
It's step 4, and it's all about taking a fearless moral inventory.
Okay.
So you're facing your shortcomings.
Oh, wow.
Just imagine businesses never took stock of their inventory, right? They'd be a total mess.
Right.
And it's the same with us and our flaws.
Yeah, I can see how this gets into that, deeper level we were talking about.
Exactly. This is where honesty is so important.
Yeah.
It's not about beating yourself up.
Right.
It's about identifying the things within you that are holding you back.
Okay, makes sense.
And then step 5 builds on that honesty.
Okay.
It's about confessing your wrongs to yourself, to your higher power,
Yeah.
and even to another person.
This is where it gets really liberating, I bet.
It can be. Think about how heavy it is to carry around secrets.
Oh, for sure.
Confessing, it's like you're letting go of that shame, accepting yourself, flaws and all.
Right.
It's huge for healing.
Okay, so we've admitted powerlessness.
Yeah.
We found strength in something bigger than ourselves,
Right.
taken a moral inventory, and confessed our wrongs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
So what's next in these 12 steps?
Well, step 6 is about being ready for change. You've identified what needs work.
Right.
Now it's about committing to actually letting go of those old patterns.
So it's like finally deciding to clean out that cluttered closet.
Exactly.
You've acknowledged the mess. Now you're ready to roll up your sleeves.
Right.
So then step 7 is asking for help with that cleaning.
Exactly. You're admitting you don't have to do it all alone.
So humbly asking your higher power to help remove those shortcomings.
That's the idea. It's recognizing that there's this force for good that really wants to see you succeed.
Right.
Whether you believe in a divine being or, something else, it's about tapping into that supportive energy.
Okay, I get it. So we've acknowledged our need for help.
Right.
And we face some hard truths about ourselves. What kind of action do these steps lead to?
Well, step 8 is where things shift gears a bit.
Okay.
It's time to make amends for the harm we've caused. Start by making a list of everyone you've wronged, no matter how big or small.
It's like you're creating a roadmap for righting those wrongs.
Right.
And then step 9 is actually taking those steps to make amends.
Yeah. Apologizing. Making things right.
Right.
Whatever feels appropriate to the situation.
Right.
But there's a crucial caveat here.
Okay.
Only do it if it won't cause further harm.
Oh, that's so important.
It is.
Sometimes an apology can do more damage than good.
Definitely.
It's about being really sensitive, really thinking it through.
Absolutely.
This isn't about blindly following steps, right?
Right.
It's about applying them thoughtfully to your situation.
Exactly.
Okay, wow, we've gone through a lot. Admitting powerlessness, finding strength, taking stock of our flaws. and now actively trying to make things right.
It's a process.
This feels like a huge shift.
It is. Yeah,
Right.
it's a big shift. And it's not about like reaching a destination. It's about the journey.
Right.
Step 10, it's all about continuing to do those personal inventories. Staying aware of your thoughts and behaviors.
So it's like we clean that closet, but now we got to keep it tidy.
Exactly.
Don't let the clutter build up again.
Right. Growth is continuous. It's not a one-time thing.
Right.
And step 11, it helps us with that, deepening our connection with our higher power
Okay.
through things like prayer and meditation.
So it's like checking in with a supportive friend,
Exactly.
seeking some guidance, some clarity.
It is. It's about nurturing that connection,
Right.
which has been so important throughout this process.
Yeah. Okay. So we've faced our shortcomings, made amends, cultivated a deeper connection. What's the final step in all of this?
The final step, step 12, is where you take all those lessons and start sharing them,
Okay.
helping other people who are struggling.
That's nice.
Like, imagine the impact that could have. Your experience could help somebody else navigate their own messy closet.
It's beautiful how it comes full circle. You go through this transformative process, and now you're using what you've learned to help others.
Yeah, it's powerful. It's fascinating, actually, how this document talks about fear.
Yeah.
Like, it's this huge obstacle. They even compare it to stealing.
Wow. Stealing. How is fear like stealing?
Well, think about it. Fear can rob us of so much. Our peace of mind, our joy, our ability to be present. Have you ever let fear hold you back from something you wanted to do?
Absolutely. It's like fear keeps us trapped in this like limited version of ourselves.
Exactly. It steals our potential.
Yeah.
And, the chapter even points out that self-reliance, which we usually think of as good,
Right.
can't fully conquer fear.
Okay. So if we can't just tough it out on our own, what's the antidote? Like, how do we overcome this fear that's holding us back?
They suggest it's all about trusting and relying on that power greater than ourselves.
Okay.
That source of hope we found back in step 2.
So it's about remembering we don't have to face everything alone.
Right.
We can tap into something bigger. It's something that can help us overcome those fears.
Exactly. And then they bring up another interesting point. They claim everyone has sex problems.
Wait, really?
Everyone. And it's easy to get way off track by going to extremes.
Okay.
They talk about finding a sane and sound ideal.
For your sex life, what does that even mean?
Well, I think it's recognizing that this is a complex area. There's no one-size-fits-all answer.
Right.
Instead of focusing on rules, they encourage honesty and self-reflection.
So like those moral inventories we talked about earlier.
Exactly. Reviewing your past conduct. Honestly, were you selfish, dishonest, inconsiderate? And then it's about making amends where you can.
So it's not about suppressing your sexuality or being reckless, but finding a path of balance.
Right. Balance, honesty, respect.
Right.
And that path is going to be different for everyone.
Okay.
It's about finding what works for you, what aligns with your values.
I appreciate how they acknowledge that we all make mistakes, especially in such a personal, often sensitive area.
Yeah.
And they say slip-ups happen.
Right.
It's not about being perfect, but about being willing to learn from those moments.
Right. Okay. This chapter also talks about how, the world and the people in it often dominate us.
Yeah.
Especially when we're holding on to resentment. It's like we're giving those people power over us by letting them live rent-free in our heads.
Right. And that outward focus, blaming other people for our problems, it prevents us from taking responsibility for our own actions,
Right.
making changes.
So it's not about denying that other people impact us, but about realizing we choose how we respond.
Exactly. It's about taking ownership and becoming empowered to create positive change.
Right. Okay.
And that brings us to another point they make, resentment.
Yeah.
It's a big problem. The number one offender, they say.
Yeah. The number one offender.
And they frame it as more than just an emotional issue.
Yeah.
It's a spiritual one. They argue that it blocks us from experiencing the, and I quote, sunlight of the spirit. Wow. Okay. It's like holding onto a dark cloud that prevents any light from getting through.
Exactly.
I think we've all felt that heaviness that comes with resentment. What do they suggest we actually do about it?
Well, they recommend getting specific.
Okay.
Write a list of every single person you're resentful towards.
Oh, wow. Okay.
That includes institutions, even principles.
So just like naming those resentments.
Right, bringing them into the open.
Right.
But don't stop there. Go deeper.
Oh.
Explore why you're resentful. What need of yours wasn't met.
Okay.
What expectations were dashed.
It's about understanding those root causes, not just like stewing in the anger.
Exactly. And then they take it even further. Consider that the people who wronged you, they're suffering too.
Okay.
It's not about excusing their actions.
Right.
It's about cultivating compassion.
That could be a tough one, but I see how that would shift things. Like,
Yeah.
if you can see someone's pain, it's harder to just stay angry.
It is, and that's where forgiveness comes in. Not just for them, but for you.
So letting go of the past hurt, freeing yourself.
Exactly. Doesn't mean condoning, doesn't mean forgetting.
Right.
Choosing to release those negative emotions.
Okay.
Reclaiming your power.
And they make this really insightful point about how when we're consumed by resentment, we're letting the world dominate us.
It's true. We're giving away our well-being to other people. It's not about ignoring their actions. It's about choosing how do we respond.
Right. It reminds me of that quote, like holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die.
Yeah, exactly. It only hurts us.
Right. So how do we reclaim that power?
Well, the chapter suggests it's about cultivating inner peace, inner strength, becoming less dependent on what's happening around you.
So like finding that sense of grounding within yourself no matter what's going on.
Exactly. It's not easy, but it's possible.
Right.
And they tie this back to surrendering to a higher power, trusting that we're guided, supported.
Almost like that higher power becomes this inner compass,
I like that.
helping us navigate all the ups and downs.
Yeah. They also talk about how our desire to control things can actually create more chaos.
Which seems kind of counterintuitive, right?
It is. We think control brings peace.
Right.
But they're saying it often stems from fear of the unknown, lack of trust.
So instead of trying to like micromanage everything, maybe we need to learn to just like surrender a bit more, accept what is.
Exactly. It's not about being passive.
Right.
It's about recognizing when it's time to let go, to trust.
Okay.
And that can lead to greater freedom, more fulfillment.
It's a theme that just keeps coming up, isn't it? This idea of surrender, trusting something bigger.
It is. It's central to this whole thing. And another big idea they keep coming back to is honesty.
Yeah, it makes sense. If you're not honest with yourself, how can you possibly start this journey?
Exactly. They say honesty is essential.
For what?
For recovery, for transformation. It all starts with being honest about those flaws, those shortcomings.
Like that moral inventory, right?
Right. Without honesty, you're not getting the whole picture.
Right.
And it goes beyond just self-honesty.
Okay.
Being honest with others, especially when you're making amends.
Okay.
It's about taking responsibility, clearing the air.
Yeah. And they suggest this honesty, while challenging, can be incredibly liberating.
Absolutely. It frees you from all that guilt, all that shame. It's about living with integrity,
Okay.
aligning your actions with your values.
So like walking the walk.
Yes. Making honesty a way of life through self-reflection, mindfulness, and a commitment to personal growth.
It's about constantly striving to live in greater alignment with your truth.
Exactly. Another major theme is this idea of letting go,
Okay.
presented as a crucial step for recovery, for transformation.
Mm-hmm.
They argue we need to let go of old ways of thinking, resentments, fears, that need for control.
It's like releasing all these heavy bags we've been carrying around.
Right, making space for something new.
Right.
And while it's challenging, it's ultimately liberating.
It's like you can finally breathe deeply
Right.
after holding your breath for too long.
I like that. It's about freeing ourselves from the past,
Okay.
embracing the present moment.
Okay. Do they offer any like practical advice for letting go?
They do. They say, become aware of what you're clinging to,
Okay.
those attachments that aren't serving you anymore. Have you ever noticed how much energy it takes to just hold on to things?
Oh, absolutely. It's exhausting.
And they encourage you to think about the benefits of letting go for yourself and the others. Sometimes holding on too tightly causes more suffering.
So learning to release those emotions in healthy ways.
Yes. Journaling, therapy, creative expression, whatever works.
Right.
But they emphasize that letting go isn't about giving up. It's not about being passive. It goes back to surrender, trusting in a higher power.
So finding that balance
Yes.
between effort and surrender, knowing we have a role to play, but also accepting that some things are beyond our control.
Right. And they suggest that that balance comes from prayer, meditation, mindful action.
It's about staying connected to your inner wisdom, trusting that guidance.
And they make a really interesting point about how attachment to material things can really hinder letting go.
Yeah, it's like those possessions become a crutch, a false sense of security.
Right.
Prevents us from experiencing true freedom.
It's not about getting rid of everything.
Right.
It's about examining your relationship with those things?
Yeah.
Are they controlling you?
Okay, yeah.
They suggest cultivating gratitude for what you have,
Okay.
recognizing that true wealth lies in relationships, experiences.
So shifting your focus
Yeah,
from the external to the internal.
exactly. And a really key part of letting go is forgiving ourselves.
Oh, yeah, they talk about that a lot.
They do. It's crucial for healing, for moving forward.
Right.
It's about releasing all that guilt and shame from past mistakes.
Right, because we all mess up sometimes.
Oh, we do. And they say we can't truly embrace our potential while holding on to that self-judgment.
Okay, so how do we cultivate that self-forgiveness? What's the, practical advice?
They say start by acknowledging the harm you've caused. Take responsibility,
Wow.
but without judging or condemning yourself.
So owning your mistakes, but not dwelling in the shame.
Right. Then make amends where possible.
Okay.
Commit to making different choices moving forward. It's about turning those mistakes into opportunities to learn.
Right, yeah.
And they emphasize practicing self-compassion. You are worthy of love. You are worthy of forgiveness, even when you make mistakes.
It's about treating yourself with the same kindness you would offer to somebody else.
Exactly. But it's not about condoning those past actions
Right.
or pretending they didn't happen.
Right.
It's about acceptance, learning, and moving forward with purpose.
So finding that balance between accountability and self-compassion.
Yes.
Yeah.
Recognizing that you are more than the sum of your past.
And it all comes back to self-reflection, mindfulness, that commitment to growth.
It does. And another aspect of letting go that they talk about is surrendering to the present moment.
So not dwelling on the past, not worrying about the future,
Right.
just being here now.
Exactly. They argue that a lot of our suffering comes from resisting the present moment.
Right.
We spend so much energy on things we can't control.
We do. And they remind us that the only moment we truly have control over is now.
Exactly.
Any practical advice for cultivating that present moment awareness?
They suggest starting with the breath. Just bring your attention to the sensations of breathing.
Okay.
It's simple, but powerful. It's like an anchor that brings you back to the here and now.
Right. Okay.
And they recommend mindfulness practices like meditation, yoga. Anything that quiets the mind, helps you focus on the present. And don't forget to find joy in the simple things. Appreciate the beauty around you.
So savoring each moment.
Yes, cultivating gratitude for the gift of life.
But surrendering to the present doesn't mean giving up on your goals, right?
Right. You can still work towards a better future.
Okay. While accepting the present moment as it is.
Right. So it's finding that balance between effort and acceptance.
Exactly. Trusting that you're exactly where you need to be right now.
That's reassuring.
Yeah.
Especially when things feel uncertain.
Mm-hmm. They also talk about detaching from outcomes, which seems kind of counterintuitive, right?
Yeah.
When you're working towards something.
It does. But they argue that that attachment to a specific outcome can lead to disappointment, frustration.
So setting goals is okay, but don't get fixated on a specific result.
Right. Focus on the journey, not just the destination.
Right.
It's about enjoying the process, no matter the outcome. It's not about giving up on your dreams.
Okay.
It's about accepting that things may not always go according to plan.
That's a tough one. But I see the wisdom in it. Letting go of the need to control every detail.
Exactly. And again, it comes back to trust, believing that the universe has a plan,
Right.
even if we can't see it.
Right. And then this chapter, it kind of delves into sex, which can be a loaded topic.
It can be, yeah. They approach it with compassion and understanding,
Right.
recognizing that everyone has their own unique experiences and struggles.
Right.
They really steer clear of judgment.
Okay, good.
And they offer this framework for navigating this part of life
Right.
in a healthy and fulfilling way.
It's refreshing considering how often sex is either overly simplified or totally taboo.
Right, it is. They acknowledge that it can be positive and negative.
Okay.
And it's about finding that balance and responsibility.
Right.
They encourage examining your own beliefs, your own attitude about sex. Is there any shame there? Guilt, judgment.
Okay.
And they suggest exploring past experiences,
Okay.
looking for any patterns, any trauma that might be impacting your current relationships.
Right. Understanding how your past shapes your present.
Right.
So healing old wounds, becoming more self-aware.
Exactly. And in a lot of encounters, they emphasize communication and consent.
Okay.
They say true intimacy requires mutual respect and understanding.
That seems so obvious, but it's surprising how often that gets overlooked.
It's true. They talk about creating this safe and sacred space
Great.
where both partners can express their needs and desires.
Right. So then they connect your relationship with sex to your relationship with yourself.
They do. They suggest that struggling with self-acceptance or self-love can actually manifest in unhealthy sexual patterns.
So it goes back to that inner work.
Exactly.
True sexual healing begins with inner healing.
Right. Learning to love and accept yourself fully,
Okay.
flaws and all. And of course, they tie it back to compassion, to forgiveness,
Makes sense.
releasing all that shame and judgment, the stuff that keeps us stuck.
Right. Yeah. They also point out that our culture sends a lot of mixed messages about sex,
It does. It does.
leading to confusion, anxiety.
We see images and messages that often objectify sex
Yes.
instead of portraying it as something to be cherished, respected.
Right. So it's about becoming a critical consumer, not just blindly accepting what the world's telling you.
Right. And they suggest seeking out resources that promote a more healthy, balanced view.
Okay.
Finding teachers and mentors who resonate with you.
Okay. Yeah. And then they talk about sexual energy as a powerful force.
Oh, yeah. For creativity, transformation.
It's not about suppressing it, but harnessing it.
Exactly. It can be this sacred and transformative experience
Right.
when it's approached with reverence and respect.
Okay. So any practical advice for cultivating that healthy relationship?
Well, they say it starts with awareness. Awareness of your thoughts and feelings about sex.
Okay.
So paying attention to how past experiences, cultural conditioning, personal beliefs, all that shapes your perceptions.
Right.
And they suggest exploring different forms of sexual expression,
Okay.
finding what feels good and authentic for you, giving yourself permission to experiment and discover what brings you pleasure.
Right. And of course, they emphasize communication openly and honestly.
Absolutely, with your partner, about your needs, about your desires, creating that space of mutual respect.
Right. They also make this point about how sexual health is actually connected to your overall well-being.
It makes sense, doesn't it? When you're taking care of yourself physically, emotionally, spiritually, it naturally flows into your sexual experiences.
So it's not just a physical act, but a holistic one.
Exactly. This chapter also talks about feeling powerless.
Yeah.
Which can be really tough to deal with. It's that feeling of not being in control of your own life, like you're a victim of circumstance. But they point out that this belief is often a distortion of reality.
Yeah.
So while we can't always control what happens to us,
Right.
we can control how we respond.
Okay, so shifting our focus to what we can control.
Exactly. They suggest identifying areas in your life where you feel powerless. Honestly, examine those feelings. Bring them into the open.
Okay.
So you can start to address them.
Right.
And they encourage exploring the beliefs, the thoughts that contribute to that feeling.
So like recognizing that our thoughts aren't always accurate.
Exactly. And then taking action.
Okay.
Even small steps to reclaim that power. Prove to yourself you're capable of creating change.
Right.
Sometimes just that first step can make all the difference.
Right.
And they also make the point that feeling powerless can sometimes be necessary
Oh, how so?
for growth.
So it's not always a bad thing.
Not necessarily. It can force you to confront your limitations.
Okay.
Surrender to something greater than yourself. It's about being humbled and learning from the experience.
And they encourage seeking support during those times.
Yes, absolutely. Friends, family, therapists, spiritual advisors. Remember, you are not alone.
And they make this observation about how our culture often perpetuates that feeling of powerlessness.
It's true. We're constantly bombarded with messages telling us we're not enough.
Right. Like we need to buy more, do more, be more.
Exactly. And it can leave us feeling inadequate, powerless. So it's about becoming a critical consumer of media.
Right. Yeah.
And choosing what you believe.
Okay.
Reclaiming your power by consciously deciding how you want to live.
And surrounding yourself with people and ideas that uplift you.
Exactly. And they connect feeling powerless with a lack of self-worth.
Which makes sense, right? If you don't believe in yourself, it's hard to believe you can create change.
Exactly. So it's about cultivating self-love, recognizing your inherent worth,
Okay.
believing in yourself and your ability to achieve your goals.
And they encourage self-care, doing things that bring you joy, that nourish your body, mind, and spirit.
Right. Treating yourself with kindness, with
Oh.
compassion.
Right. And they also point out that our perception of power can be distorted.
We often think of power as control over other people.
Right. Over situations.
Yeah. But they say true power comes from mastering yourself.
So it's not about dominating others.
Right.
It's about self-mastery.
Yes. And that comes from self-awareness, discipline, a commitment to growth.
It's about becoming the best version of yourself.
Yeah.
And then they talk about making amends.
Mm-hmm. Which can be tough, but it's necessary.
Yeah. They acknowledge that it's humbling, facing your past and taking responsibility for the harm you've caused.
It is. It's recognizing that our actions have consequences and that we have a moral obligation to try and make things right.
Right. So they suggest making a list of everyone you've harmed, bringing those transgressions into the light.
Right. And then consider the best way to approach each person, being sensitive to their feelings,
Right.
respecting their boundaries.
Okay.
And they emphasize sincerity.
Okay.
A genuine apology is key.
Right.
It's about speaking from the heart, expressing true remorse.
And it's not just about apologizing, right?
Right, no. It's about taking concrete steps to repair the harm.
So like offering restitution, changing your behavior.
Yes, it's about showing through your actions that you are sorry.
Right. And they acknowledge this can be really challenging.
It is.
Especially if the other person isn't receptive.
Right.
But they suggest you can still make amends by focusing on your own growth. It's your own transformation. It's about doing the right thing, regardless of the outcome.
Exactly. And once again, they emphasize the importance of forgiveness.
Right.
For yourself and for others, releasing that burden of guilt and moving forward.
Okay. This chapter also dives into anger, which can be such a powerful emotion.
It is. It's natural, but they say it needs to be managed effectively.
Okay. They suggest it comes from unmet needs, perceived threats.
Right. It's about understanding those underlying causes and finding healthy ways to express it.
So becoming aware of your triggers, what sets you off?
Practicing calming techniques, deep breathing, taking a time out, anything to break that anger cycle.
Right, okay.
And communicating your needs assertively instead of resorting to aggression or passive aggressiveness.
Okay, so finding that balance between expressing yourself and de-respecting others.
Exactly. They also point out that anger can actually be a mask.
Or what?
Other emotions, hurt, fear, sadness. So explore those deeper emotions.
Right.
Address them directly. It's not about suppressing the anger. It's about understanding its roots.
Makes sense.
And they recommend seeking professional help if you're struggling.
Right. They also make this interesting observation about how, like, our culture glorifies anger.
It does. It does. We see it all the time. Anger portrayed as strength.
Right.
Power.
Yeah.
So it's about challenging those norms, recognizing that true strength lies in emotional regulation.
Right. Choosing peace over aggression.
Yes. Understanding over judgment.
Okay.
Compassion over anger.
Okay. I like that. And then they talk about patience, which can be really hard in our, like, fast-paced world.
It can be. It's about recognizing things take time. We can't force outcomes.
And it's about that surrender again, isn't it?
It is. Become aware of your impatience.
Okay.
What triggers it?
Right.
Practice slowing down, deep breaths, taking breaks.
Okay.
Creating space for calm.
Instead of just rushing.
Exactly. They also encourage reframing your perspective.
Okay.
See delays and setbacks as opportunities for growth.
It's about trusting that things are unfolding as they should.
Exactly. They emphasize that patience is not about passively waiting.
Okay.
It's about actively engaging, while accepting that things might not happen on our timeline.
So balance between effort and acceptance.
Right. Trusting that the universe has a perfect timing for everything.
Okay. And then they cover dealing with setbacks.
Right.
Which are just an inevitable part of life.
They suggest that setbacks can be opportunities for growth, for learning.
It's about reframing failure, isn't it?
It is. It's not the opposite of success.
Right.
It's a stepping stone.
I like that, a stepping stone to success. So acknowledge your feelings, the disappointment, the frustration.
Yes, but then look for the lessons, the opportunities.
Okay.
Hidden within that setback.
Right. Turning challenges into opportunities for growth.
Exactly. And reach out for support. You are not alone.
Right. And they highlight how our response to these setbacks really shapes our future success.
It's true. If we let them define us, discourage us, we're likely to experience more setbacks.
So it's about building resilience, that ability to bounce back.
Exactly. Recognizing that setbacks are not the end. They are a plot twist.
I like that. So view them as opportunities to learn, to grow, to become stronger.
Yes. And this brings us to another important quality, humility.
Right, which is often misunderstood.
It is. It's not about putting yourself down, denying your strengths.
Okay.
It's about recognizing we're not perfect. We all make mistakes. We're all in this together. They suggest starting with gratitude, appreciating the good things, big and small.
Okay.
Engage in acts of service, helping others without expectation.
Right, shifting the focus from yourself to others.
Exactly. Be open to learning, recognizing that everyone has something to teach us.
So approaching life with curiosity,
Yes.
a beginner's mind.
Exactly. They make it clear, though, that humility is not weakness. True humility, it takes strength. It takes courage.
Being willing to admit mistakes.
It's
Experts.
It takes strength. It takes courage.
Yeah.
It's about being willing to admit when you're wrong, to ask for help,
Right.
to learn from experience. It's recognizing that your ego, it's not your friend.
Okay.
True growth comes from letting go of the need to be right.
Right.
They encourage us to view humility as like a superpower,
Okay.
a quality that allows you to connect with others
Right.
on a deeper level
Okay.
and navigate life, with grace.
Right, right. They also talk about dealing with criticism, which can be so hard to take sometimes.
They acknowledge that it's painful, it's difficult to receive,
Right.
but our response, it really determines whether it's helpful or harmful.
So true.
They encourage us to discern between constructive and destructive criticism,
Okay.
recognizing that not all feedback is created equal.
Right. Yeah. So constructive criticism is meant to help you grow, but destructive is just meant to tear you down.
Right. And we have the power to choose how we respond.
So true. Ignore the destructive stuff and then use the constructive stuff to actually grow from it.
Exactly. They say our critics can be our greatest teachers.
Interesting. So what's their advice on receiving criticism gracefully?
They say, start by listening, really attentively. Try to understand their perspective.
Okay.
Even if you don't agree,
Okay.
ask clarifying questions. Make sure you fully understand.
Right. Yeah.
And thank them for their feedback,
Okay.
whether you agree or not.
Okay.
Just acknowledge that they took the time to share their thoughts.
It shows respect too.
It does. And they point out that how we respond to criticism, it can reveal a lot about ourselves.
Okay. How so?
Well, if we get defensive,
No.
angry, it could be a sign of insecurity
Right.
or a fragile ego.
So criticism can be a tool for self-reflection.
It can.
Why are we so reactive? What can we learn?
Exactly. They encourage us to view criticism as a gift,
Wow. A gift. Okay.
an opportunity to grow, to become better.
Recognizing that sometimes other people can see things in us that we can't.
It's true. And they talk about disappointment, too.
Oh, yeah. Another inevitable part of life.
It is. And it often stems from unmet expectations.
For sure.
It's about recognizing that those expectations, they don't always match reality.
So true.
So allow yourself to feel the emotions, the sadness, the frustration, the anger.
Right.
But then try to reframe your perspective.
Okay.
Look for the lessons, the opportunities.
Right. Turning challenges into opportunities for growth.
Exactly. And practice gratitude. Focus on the good things, even when things aren't going your way.
It's about recognizing that there's always something to be grateful for.
Yes. And they point out that how we respond to disappointment, it can really shape our future happiness.
Okay.
If we let it define us, discourage us,
Right.
we're likely to experience more disappointment.
So build that resilience, right?
Yeah.
Bounce back from it. Recognizing it's not the end.
Exactly. They encourage us to view it as an opportunity, to learn, to grow, to become stronger.
Embrace the journey with all its ups and downs.
Exactly. And then they talk about fear.
Right. Another challenging emotion.
It is. It's powerful. And it can be paralyzing. It can prevent us from living fully.
Okay.
They suggest it often comes from a lack of trust.
In ourselves, in others, in the universe.
All of those things.
Okay.
Fear is often based on illusions, distortions of reality.
Right.
So they offer advice for navigating it. Start by identifying those fears,
Okay.
bringing them out into the open, examining them. Challenge those fears. Ask yourself, are they based on fact or just your own limiting beliefs?
Right. Because fear is often a liar.
It is. Take action in spite of those fears.
Okay.
The only way to overcome them is to face them.
Right. Step outside your comfort zone. Prove to yourself you're stronger than you think.
Exactly. And they point out that sometimes fear can be helpful.
Oh, okay. In what way?
It can alert us to danger, keep us safe.
What?
So it's about discerning between healthy fear that protects us and unhealthy fear that paralyzes us.
Okay.
Not all fear is bad.
Right. Use it as a guide.
Exactly.
Listen to your intuition. Make wise choices.
And they also talk about guilt,
Okay.
another heavy one.
It is.
They say it can weigh us down, prevent us from moving on.
Right.
And that it often comes from this belief that we've done something wrong.
Right. Or that we're not good enough.
Exactly.
So recognizing that guilt is often based on our own internal judgments, not necessarily reality.
Right.
Okay, so how do we deal with it?
They say start by acknowledging your mistakes.
Okay.
Take responsibility for your actions.
Right.
But without judgment, without condemnation.
So own your mistakes, but don't dwell in the shame.
Exactly. Then make amends where possible.
Okay.
Commit to making better choices. It's about learning from those mistakes and moving on.
Right. With a renewed sense of purpose.
Yes. And practicing self-forgiveness. You are worthy of love, of compassion, even when you make mistakes.
So release the burden of guilt. Embrace your imperfections.
Exactly. But they do say that guilt can be helpful sometimes.
Okay.
It can motivate us to make amends.
Right.
Live according to our values.
Right. So discern between that healthy guilt that guides us towards change and the unhealthy guilt that just keeps us stuck.
Exactly. Use it as a catalyst for growth.
Okay.
Learn from your mistakes. Become a better version of yourself.
Guilt can be a teacher. They also talk about loss.
Yes, an inevitable part of life.
It is.
They acknowledge that it can take many forms.
Right. The death of a loved one.
The end of a relationship.
Yeah. Lots of job even.
It's a universal human experience.
It is.
So allow yourself to grieve. Acknowledge the pain, the sadness.
Okay.
Reach out for support. Talk to loved ones, a therapist, join a support group.
You don't have to go through it alone.
You don't. And they suggest finding healthy ways to honor the person or thing that you lost. Create rituals, traditions, help you remember, celebrate their life.
Right. And they say that how we respond to loss, it really determines our future happiness.
It's true. If we let it consume us, define us,
Right.
we're more likely to experience more suffering.
So resilience is key. Bouncing back, knowing that loss is not the end.
It's not. It's just a chapter.
Right, okay. View it as an opportunity for growth. Learn about yourself. Deepen your compassion. Appreciate life. Find beauty, hope, even in the midst of loss.
Exactly. And they talk about dealing with change.
Right, another constant.
It is. They point out that our resistance to it often causes more suffering than the change itself.
So true. We cling to what's familiar, even when it's not good for us.
So acknowledge that resistance. Notice how you're holding on.
Okay.
And then try to reframe your perspective. See change as an opportunity for growth, for expansion.
What if change isn't something to be afraid of? What if it's something to embrace?
Right. Have you ever thought back to a change that felt scary at the time and realized it actually led to something better?
Absolutely. Yeah, it happens.
It does. And they encourage practicing flexibility,
Okay.
recognizing that plans may need to adjust as things change.
Right. So go with the flow. Don't get too attached to the plan.
Right. It can be tough, especially if you're someone who likes to plan.
For sure. But think about how much easier it would be if we could all loosen up a bit. Allow ourselves to be surprised.
Right. And they connect how we respond to change with our level of happiness.
Okay, yeah. If we embrace it, we're more likely to experience joy.
Exactly. Develop that growth mindset. Believe that you can learn and adapt. Don't see change as a threat. See it as an adventure.
Right, a journey into the unknown.
Exactly. And then they address dealing with failure, which can be tough for a lot of people.
Yeah, it can feel really heavy.
They say it all comes down to our perception of failure.
Okay,
It's not the opposite of success. It's a stepping stone to your success.
I like that. Stepping stone.
Acknowledge the feelings, the disappointment, frustration, maybe even shame. But then look for the lessons.
Okay.
Turn those challenges into opportunities for growth. Reach out for support. You don't have to go through it alone. And how we respond to failure, it really does shape our future. If we let it define us or discourage us, we're likely to experience more of it. So build resilience.
Bounce back.
Exactly. Failure is not the end. It's a plot twist.
Yeah.
View it as a chance to learn, to grow, to become stronger.
Right. And they talk about self-care too.
Something we often neglect. They say it's essential.
Or what?
Our physical, emotional, and spiritual well-being. It's not selfish, it's self-love.
Right.
So identify your needs. What do you need to feel happy, to feel healthy, to feel fulfilled? Create boundaries.
Okay.
Protect your time and energy from things that drain you.
So learn to say no.
Yes, and prioritize your well-being. Engage in activities that bring you joy, things that help you relax, recharge, connect with yourself. But it's not a one-size-fits-all approach.
All right, what works for one person might not work for another.
Exactly. So find what feels good for you. Create a routine that you can sustain. Listen to your body, listen to your heart. Honor your needs.
And make it a practice, not just a one-time thing.
Exactly. Prioritize yourself.
Prioritize your well-being.
Yes. They also talk about forgiveness.
Okay, which can be really difficult.
It can be, but they emphasize that it's essential.
For what?
Our emotional and spiritual health. It's not about condoning what someone did. It's about releasing the anger, the resentment.
Okay.
Start by acknowledging the harm, recognize the impact their actions had on you, then cultivate compassion.
Okay.
Recognize that they might be acting from a place of pain. See them as human.
Not a villain.
Right. And then choose to let go. Holding on to anger, it only hurts us. It's not always easy. It's a process. Be patient with yourself.
Right. And it's not just about forgiving others.
No.
It's about forgiving ourselves.
Yeah, we often carry guilt, shame. It keeps us stuck. So offer yourself that same compassion, that forgiveness.
We are all human. We all make mistakes.
We do. And make self-forgiveness an ongoing practice.
Yeah.
Release the burden of the past. Embrace the present.
Yeah. Okay. What about grief?
They acknowledge that grief can show up in many ways. Sadness, anger, guilt, regret. There's no right or wrong way to grieve.
That's important to remember.
It is. Allow yourself to feel. Don't try to suppress or deny those emotions. Reach out for support.
Right.
Talk to people. Find a therapist. Join a group. You are not alone.
Right. Find healthy ways to express that grief too.
Yeah.
Journal, art, music, whatever works for you.
Exactly. And remember, it's a process, not an event.
Okay.
It takes time. There's no set timeline.
Be patient with yourself. Let it unfold.
Yes, be gentle with yourself.
Grief is a roller coaster.
It is. But it can also be transformative. It can deepen our compassion, our empathy,
Okay.
our appreciation for life. So even in loss, there can be growth. There can be transformation. What about anxiety?
They talk about that too.
They do,
Right.
suggesting it comes from a fear of the unknown or this perceived lack of control.
Right.
So remember, anxiety is often based on thoughts, beliefs, not necessarily reality. So what are your triggers?
Right. Okay.
What situations, what thoughts make you anxious?
Right.
Practice relaxation, deep breathing, meditation, anything to calm the mind and body, and challenge those negative thoughts. Replace them with positive, realistic ones.
Because our thoughts aren't always true reflections of reality.
Exactly.
Right.
And they also suggest that sometimes anxiety can be a sign
Right.
that we need to make changes in our lives.
Okay. So it's a signal.
It can be. If you're constantly anxious, maybe you're not living in alignment with your values.
Right. Or your goals.
Exactly. So what needs to change?
Right.
And of course, seek professional help. If you need it, sometimes we need support.
To build those healthy coping skills.
Exactly.
Right. And they also talk about how our culture feeds into that anxiety.
It does. We're constantly bombarded with messages telling us we're not enough.
Right. We need to do more, be more, have more.
Exactly. It's about becoming a critical consumer, recognizing those attempts to manipulate us. Reclaim your power by choosing what you believe, how you want to live. Find sources of inspiration that align with your values.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. What about stress?
They talk about that too, suggesting it often comes from feeling overwhelmed, overloaded, and that it often comes from our own perceptions and expectations.
Right. So identify those stressors. What situations, what people trigger your stress?
Exactly. Develop healthy ways of coping. Exercise, relaxation, time in nature. Find ways to lower those stress levels and set boundaries.
Right. Protect your time and energy. Learn to say no.
Yes, prioritize your own well-being. But stress can also be a positive force.
Oh,
It can motivate us to take action to achieve our goals. So find the balance between stress and relaxation.
Right, because some stress is good, but too much is definitely not.
Exactly. They talk about how our culture actually glorifies busyness, this idea that we're only valuable if we're constantly productive.
Oh, for sure.
So challenge those norms.
Right.
Recognize that rest and relaxation are important too. Give yourself permission to slow down, to recharge.
Create a life that's balanced, sustainable.
Exactly. They also address conflict.
Oh,
They say it's inevitable in relationships,
it is.
and how we approach it determines whether it's destructive or constructive.
Right, because conflict isn't always the bad thing.
It's not. They suggest we start by listening. Really try to understand the other person's perspective.
Even if you don't agree with it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then communicate your own needs clearly, respectfully.
So express yourself, but don't be aggressive.
Right. And focus on finding solutions that work for both of you. Collaboration, not competition.
Yeah.
And they say that our emotional state can affect our ability to resolve conflict.
Okay, yeah. If we're angry or defensive or hurt, it's probably not a good time to try to hash things out.
Exactly. So recognize your triggers, manage those emotions, create a space for calm and respectful communication, and seek help if you need it. Sometimes we need help to develop healthy communication skills. They also make an interesting point about how conflict can be an opportunity for growth.
Okay. I mean, it makes sense if you could learn from it.
It can help us learn about ourselves,
Yeah.
strengthen our relationships. So view it as a challenge.
Not a threat.
Right. Recognize it can lead to better understanding, better connection.
Right. Approach it with curiosity, openness, a chance to learn and grow.
Okay, they also talk about setting boundaries, too. They
Mhm.
really emphasize how important those are.
They are. For healthy relationships, they help protect your time, your energy, your emotional well-being.
Right, so recognizing your right to say no and prioritize your needs.
Exactly. So start by identifying your limits. What will you tolerate and what won't you? Then communicate those boundaries clearly, assertively.
Okay,
Let others know what you expect.
Yeah.
And enforce them consistently.
so your actions match your words. They acknowledge that this can be hard, especially if you're used to pleasing people.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It takes practice to get comfortable with it.
Right. Start small
Yes.
and gradually work your way up.
Exactly. It's a skill. You can learn it. View boundaries as an act of self-love, not a selfish act. Recognize that you deserve respect. Your needs are important.
Right. They also make the point that boundaries can actually strengthen relationships.
They can. When you have clear boundaries, it creates safety and trust.
Right. So it's not about keeping people out. It's about creating healthy connections.
Yes, being close to others without losing yourself. And then they get into self-compassion, too.
Oh, yeah. They mentioned that earlier.
Mm-hmm. They say it's essential for our emotional well-being. Treat yourself with the same kindness you'd offer a loved one.
Okay.
Recognize we're all human, we all mess up, so become aware of your inner critic.
Okay. That negative voice.
Exactly. Notice those thoughts, those judgments you have towards yourself. Challenge them. Are they kind? Are they helpful? Are they even realistic? Replace negative self-talk with something more positive.
More compassionate.
Yes, practice self-care. Do things that nourish you. Treat yourself with love, respect.
Right.
Self-compassion isn't about being complacent or letting yourself off the hook. It's about holding yourself accountable while being kind.
Right. Balance between self-acceptance and self-improvement.
Yes, you are worthy of love and forgiveness, even when you make mistakes.
And lastly, they talk about gratitude too.
They say it can be transformative. Focus on the good, no matter how big or small.
Right. Appreciate what you do have instead of focusing on what you lack.
Exactly.
So keep a gratitude journal.
That's a good idea.
Write down a few things you're thankful for each day.
Express gratitude to others, too.
Okay.
Spread that kindness, that appreciation. Practice mindfulness. Pay attention to this moment. Appreciate the beauty around you. Savor those simple pleasures. Remember, gratitude isn't about denying the challenges.
Right.
It's about choosing to focus on the positive.
Even when things are tough.
Yes. Find the silver lining.
Well,
Make it a habit, a way of life. It can have a profound impact on your happiness.
the more you appreciate what you have, the more you have to appreciate.
Exactly. And one of the themes that keeps coming up is this idea of surrendering to a higher power.
Yeah.
They emphasize that our willpower alone isn't always enough.
We have to tap into something greater than ourselves.
Yeah.
Recognizing that we're not alone. That there's this force for good that supports us. And higher power can mean different things to different people. It doesn't have to be religious. Could be nature, the universe, whatever resonates with you.
Exactly. It's about finding that connection and cultivating faith and trust.
And surrender can be liberating too.
It can be letting go of the need to control everything, trusting that we're guided.
Yeah.
But it's not about being passive. It's not about giving up on our goals.
Oh, yeah.
We can still take action while trusting that the universe has a plan.
Right. Finding that balance
Yeah.
between effort and surrender.
Yes.
Knowing we're co-creators.
Exactly. Working in partnership with something greater.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
And that partnership, it can lead to greater peace, joy, and fulfillment. So What are some practical ways to cultivate surrender?
Start with prayer or meditation. Connect with your inner wisdom. Engage in acts of service. Help others without expecting anything in return. And cultivate gratitude. Appreciate those blessings in your life. So there you have it, a deep dive into how it works.
Wow. It's a reminder that we're not alone in our struggles.
We're not. There's a path to freedom, to fulfillment, and the journey begins with surrendering to something greater.
Letting go of that ego, trusting that we're being guided toward our highest good.
Exactly. It's fascinating how they highlight that connection between our emotional, spiritual, even physical well-being.
Yeah, it's all connected.
It is. It's not about compartmentalizing different aspects of ourselves. It's about recognizing that true healing happens when we address the whole person.
Mind, body, and spirit.
Exactly. This deep dive has given you a lot to think about. What resonated with you?
What practices might you want to explore further?
We encourage you to reflect on these questions. And remember, this journey is an ongoing process.
One that requires honesty, courage,
And that willingness to surrender.
to something greater than ourselves.
Exactly. Thanks for joining us for another deep dive.
See you next time.